program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And hello and welcome to the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm Darren Jaime, and of course you are watching Open, the one and only live and interactive talk show that brings the Bronx and the rest of the world up to you. So, first up today, our legal correspondent David Lesh talks about the historic vote and bill that legalized same-sex marriage. Plus, we'll have the executive director of City Squash to talk about how a racket and a ball are helping to change the lives of some of New York's teens. Also, realtor and mortgage broker Autumn Erling is here to discuss her book, The Real Deal, about the recession and protecting our homes from foreclosure. And for over 20 years, Summer Search youth programs have had at-risk teens and also turned them into role models. One of their success stories will speak on what this organization has meant to her. And we encourage you to stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now, we're officially open. Yeah, welcome, Bronxites. I'm your host, Darren Jaime. Today is Wednesday, July 13th, 2011. And of course, you are watching Open, the one and only live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York straight to your TV set. So we encourage you to feel free to give us a call at 718-960-7241, or you can send us an email to open@bronxnet.org, and we invite you to write us as well on Facebook and Twitter at BronxNet TV. We also want to hear you tweet throughout the show, so make sure you do that. Well, first up, we're talking with our legal correspondent. For quite some time, the issue of gay marriage has been the topic of discussion nationwide as well as internationally. A few weeks ago, the state of New York voted, after many protests and debates, to legalize same-sex marriage. Here now to join us about the discussion is our legal correspondent, David Lesh. And David, as we know, New York, the sixth state to do it, one of the largest ones to actually do it, and yet and still, while the bill is passed and the governor signed it, still a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. You know, we did a show on same-sex marriage on Today's Verdict, which was running this week, and we had a very interesting guest, Harold Price Feringer. He is a constitutional lawyer. He's argued over 25 cases before the United States Supreme Court. He's well known, and he was terrific. He came on the show and we talked a little bit about the pros and cons of the debate to begin with, and then ultimately the same-sex marriage law that did pass. But before we did, we actually talked a little bit of the history, and that was the most fascinating thing: the history of the gay movement, and how in the 1960s you ended up with the Stonewall riots, and the fact that kind of pushed the gays into the forefront. You're into the 1970s at this point. There were still a push for rights, but it was more on an individual basis. The group itself was not really looking to form any kind of unions, to have any rights with respect to marriage. They just wanted to be known as a group, which they did in the 70s. Then you hit the 80s, they took a step backward with the AIDS epidemic. I think society was punishing the gay and lesbian community for a little while. And then finally, when you got into the 90s, the push for the same-sex marriage laws began. And they started really in Hawaii, of all places. And then what Hawaii did, even though there was a push to have the law created for same-sex in I think it was 1996, Hawaii became the first state to ban same-sex marriage through a constitutional amendment. And now we have 30 states that still ban it through the constitutional amendments. Because remember, each state has its own constitution.
Right.
And you can put forth an amendment to ban it.
Which is why New York was able to get this law passed through, because they have their own constitution.
Well, we have a constitution too, and then once we ended up into the 2000 and above, that's when some of the other states were also trying to do these types of things as well. And then finally you had Vermont that said, okay, in 1999, let's do civil unions as opposed to marriage. That lasted until the Massachusetts said, no, we don't have to do civil unions. Let's actually legalize marriage. And Massachusetts was the first state to actually do that. A few other states followed. Eventually, I think it was by 2003, the Supreme Court struck down all sodomy laws. And in his dissent, Judge Scalia said that this is probably going to lead to same-sex marriage laws. Not that he was so happy about that, and he was right. And that was back in 2003. Fast forward now to 2011, and New York finally puts forth the same-sex marriage law in the end of June. It was fairly close, but the interesting thing is, even though there were less Democrats now, they were able to get it. I'm sorry, there were more Democrats now than there were before. They were able to get it passed, and I think it was because some Republicans also switched sides, which was nice, and it's been a big debate. And I think what I was discussing on the show, and what I think is an interesting thing for your viewers, is to understand is that even though it's been passed, there are still a tremendous amount of unknowns that are out there, and I'll give you a few.
Okay.
The first one is same-sex divorce now. I mean, that's a big one, because some of these marriages are going to fall apart, just like any marriage falls apart. The question is, how do you get divorced? Well, in New York, you do not need a residency requirement to get married. In other words, you just come to New York. You don't have to live here. Get married in New York.
Right.
But to get divorced in New York, you need to live here for 90 days. So what do you do if you're a gay couple and you get married and now you want to get divorced, but you're living in Texas or someplace else that does not recognize gay marriage? Well, does that mean you have to come to New York as a couple and live here for 3 months before you're able to file for divorce? Nobody knows, because it's never happened.
Right.
Now, property. How do you distribute the assets?
Property,
well, you
right.
think it would be equitable distribution the way it would be in any marriage, but hold on a second. Some of these civil unions, some of these people have been together for 15, 20, 30 years, and they've been sharing property, but it's been in only one person's name.
So when you see these cases come down the line, and when these cases come down the line, they're going to be setting a precedent.
That's right, because we don't know what the answers are here. Because somebody might say, hey, look, we were living together for 30 years. Yes, the house was in my spouse's name all that time, but we weren't married because we couldn't get married. But it was really both our houses. Are you telling me now that that's premarital property and I can't split that if we get divorced?
Right.
Well, you can't. So that's an issue. And how about this one? This is another issue. Think about this. You get married in New York, a gay couple, but now you go to Texas and they don't recognize gay marriage, and one of the union says, you know what, I think I'm going to get married to a woman now. Well, can you do that? Well, Texas would say sure, because we never thought you were married to begin with. So yet in New York you're married to a man, and now in Texas you can get married to a woman at the same time. In other words, these are all issues that no one's really thought of because they haven't come before the courts yet. Will Texas give New York's law full faith and credit, it's called? In other words, acknowledge the fact that they are married in New York? Right now, Texas would not do that. So these are all very interesting issues that are going to come about. But the debate is still there. There are still many states that are still debating the issue to begin with. Pro-gay marriage is psychologically, it's important for a couple to get married. Psychologically, people who are married live longer. They have less stress levels, assuming they're in a good marriage, which is a big assumption. Then financially, it's a big windfall for the states that have gay marriage. Marriage licenses bring in revenue. Weddings bring in revenue. Photography, everything coming with a wedding, getting married brings revenue. Come into New York to get married, they stay in New York and they stay married here. That's a big windfall. A lot of other states are trying to catch up on that. But financially, let's look at the downside. There's marriage exemptions on your tax form. Does that mean that there's not going to be as much money paid into the IRS? Whereas if they were not married, they'd have to pay that money.
Right.
Or other Social Security benefits. Can you get that now because you're married?
Right. Talk to us about the appeal process, because we do understand there is the possibility of an appeal, and we know that those who are against have filed.
Well, they try and get into the court system now. In other words, that the law is unconstitutional. Remember, we have three branches of government. That's the way it always works. We have the legislature, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. Executive is in New York. Let's simplify it for New York. Executive is the governor, the judiciary is the Court of Appeals, and the legislature is the New York State Assembly, upstate, the Senate and the Assembly, right? Well, remember what the judiciary is. The judiciary reviews laws to make sure that the laws are constitutional. That's what the Court of Appeals does. And just because the legislature passes a law doesn't necessarily mean it's constitutional. That's why we have the three branches of government to check on each other. So, of course, the minute the legislature passes the law through both branches, now it's up for the court to decide whether the law is constitutional. I would think they would say it's constitutional. You know, it would be hard-pressed to see the Court of Appeals strike down this type of law, considering the debate that's gone on, and it seems that so many people in New York are so pro-gay marriage at this point. But you never know.
Now, let me ask this, because there was a lot of backfighting between religious institutions when it came to the issue of this bill. Yet and still, there were some provisions in there. Can you share a little bit about that in terms of limitations?
Well, the institution of marriage comes from the Bible, all right? And it's in the book of Genesis, which basically says it's a man and a woman, right? That's the issue. The religious institutions really get very, very angry, and we're not necessarily so pro-gay marriage, right? Mm-hmm. But that's always been the case whenever you're dealing with religious institutions. Well, the question was, how much protection is the? Do we have a caller?
Yeah, we do have a caller, and I want to look.
Okay.
But let me cut in and take the caller, and then I'll come back and let you finish the question. We do have a caller, and we encourage you, as you said, call us 960-7241. Once again, the number 960-7241, and your call here on Open. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
I have a question for Mr. Lesh.
Mm-hmm.
What about a person that marries somebody from outside the country? Let's say they're here on a temporary visa. Hello?
Outside of the country.
Okay.
I think that's what we heard was outside.
We're dealing with, I think the question basically is, what happens if you marry somebody outside the country? How does New York give that particular marriage full faith and credit? It's the same with any marriage that's outside the country. More often than not, we will acknowledge marriages that occur in France, in the Philippines, wherever you're married. You come in here, you show you're married, you show your marriage certificate. We will acknowledge that marriage. Whether you can get divorced here is another situation, but we will acknowledge the marriage. I guess what the caller is insinuating is, what happens if they're married outside the country, same spouse marriage, and then they come into maybe a state that doesn't necessarily recognize same-sex marriage. That would be an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what would happen there, or what the caller may also be, because she got cut off, may also be wondering, which is an interesting question, is what happens if you get married in New York, same-sex marriage, and then you go overseas? Will another country acknowledge the fact that you're married to a man or a woman to a woman in another country? All new issues. We don't really know, what the stories are. We expect other countries to abide by our laws and give, again, it's called full faith and credit to whatever our laws are here. But that doesn't always happen. For instance, we've been trying to extradite certain people from France to the United States for criminal charges many times. We have treaties with certain countries that allow us to take their individuals to come here so we can prosecute them, right? That famous producer, remember, in France, who we've been trying to get here for 25, 30 years. But France does not have an extradition treaty, so they don't give our law full faith and credit. Mm-hmm. They don't acknowledge it, even though we say, look, he violated child pornography laws, let's get him back here. But they don't necessarily do it. So certain countries will look at our laws and give it full faith and credit. Some countries won't. But when you're talking about a brand new law, less than a month old, same-sex marriage law, you don't know what other countries are going to do, and you don't know, what we're going to do with respect to whether they get married in Europe and they come to a state here that doesn't accept gay marriage. So these are all areas of the law that are still, in the process of, of being looked at. And of course, who it lands in. It always lands into the courts. It's always the way it works.
And once again, this is going to be something the taxpayer dollars are going to have to wrangle out again in this matter with the appeal process and the fact the governor did sign it into law. Where do things stand now? Because we know the end of July there was something else that was coming up.
The end of July is when you're going to be able to actually get married in New York. Go in marriage, have your ceremony, and get it started. Now, you had brought up an interesting question before, by the way. The question was the religious institutions. What is their own legal ramifications if they do marry somebody? Can an action be brought against them by the church themselves or other institutions in New York who are trying to sue, basically saying that it's illegal and you're doing something that's not correct? They're insulated. In other words, they can perform a gay marriage and there will be no lawsuits against the church. And that was something that they were looking for because, there will always be different groups that will bring actions on behalf of religious organizations. And you don't want to be sued, as a church, as a synagogue, as a mosque or whatever, for performing the ceremony. So it's nice to make sure that they're protected. But it's a fascinating area of the law, and I think what Harold Price Ferringer did, the attorney on the show on Today's Verdict, did is he brought out some very interesting points in terms of the constitutionality of these types of laws and where we're heading as a nation. And I think we're becoming a little bit more liberal in certain areas, yet the United States Supreme Court is conservative in other areas. And I think the interesting part as an attorney for me, which makes this so much fun, is that each particular case that gets before the Supreme Court, you really don't know what they're going to do. And you really don't. And at least in New York now, although in New York we know it's legal, in the federal system, same-sex marriage has not been given a stamp of approval. Basically, the federal government has said the states can do what they want in their individual states. But we're not going to tell you that same-sex marriage is something that we're going to say is just legal and that there could be a federal law legalizing it. Do you understand?
Right. Gotcha.
And this is what's been attempted. They attempted it in Congress and it was struck down.
So where do we see things going from here?
Well, I think
That's a loaded question.
It's going to take a long time to see what the other states are going to do. There are 6 states now. A lot of the other states want the revenue. Like I said, it brings in a lot of revenue when you come in and you get married, marriage licenses, weddings, photography, everything that comes with a marriage. They don't want to be the last one to do it. You have Connecticut, Iowa, Vermont, New Hampshire, District of Columbia, and now finally New York. It's only 6.
And New York being the largest.
The largest.
And needless to, a point to say too, the governor, who's Catholic himself, has faced a lot of backlash for even signing the law.
Well, it's always that way. I mean, the Catholic Church is very powerful, and New York it always has to make sure that it watches out for certain groups who have opinions, and that's what we're made for. But in the end, I think, my opinion, and I'm allowed to say this, I think the legislator did the right thing. I think it stepped up. It had been a long time coming. I think that the gay movement deserve this. They've been living with their partners for a very long time, and why shouldn't they share the same rights as married couples have? And you know what? They fought hard for this bill, and kudos to them for being able to get it passed finally.
All right, David Lesh. We're going to take a quick break, but coming up after the break, we're going to ask you, can the squash plus some tutoring do for a week for a New York team? Well, the executive director of City Squash is here to tell us right after we take a quick break. So stay with us. We're coming right back in just a few seconds, right after this.
When I was younger, man, my brother was the one who really took care of me, man.
Is that right?
Hey, he wake me up in the morning, get me ready for school, take a shower, make me some breakfast.
Where your brother at now?
Oh, he know. Iraq. I get lonely, nobody to talk to. I felt like quitting school. He looked at me dead in my eye. He told me, if not for me, I'll do it for him.
Give Josh and our class of 08 the boost they need to graduate. Join us at boostup.org.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
And we are back here on Open. Darren Jaime here with you. Well, City Squash is a unique program in more than one way. Youth from the 3rd grade all the way up to college students are not just learning and playing a sport that isn't quite as popular as areas like in certain places of the Bronx, but they're also tutored and they have access to college preparation. Founded just 9 years ago, City Squash has built quite a presence at Fordham University and here in the Bronx community. Here to tell us more about the programs that his organization has to offer is Tim Wyant, Executive Director of City Squash, and with him is his student. And we've got Billy with us. And Billy, how do you pronounce your last name? Florima?
Florima, yeah.
Florima. Wanted to make sure I got it right. All righty. Thank you. So when you talk about City Squash, as we said, something that started 9 years ago, but it's growing. Share with us a little bit about the growth of City Squash.
Sure. City Squash is an after-school program based at Fordham University, and we started in 2002. We serve now 125 students, 130 students, from the 3rd grade all the way through high school and college. And the basic idea of the program is to introduce students to this sport, squash, which is an indoor racket sport. Fordham has 4 squash courts, and they open up their courts in their classrooms to our students. And in addition to letting them play the sport, in addition to teaching them the sport and having them play tournaments, we match that with academic support, tutoring and mentoring, and a lot of community service activities. And so our students are involved year-round, all the way from 3rd grade, if they choose to, through high school and college. And a lot of educational opportunities have been won by those students, and a lot of great travel experiences too.
And Billy's one of those students who've benefited from the travel. You're in 7th grade, and you had the opportunity to go to Europe and play squash.
Yeah.
Where'd you go? Went to Germany and?
I went to Germany and Holland.
Germany and Holland,
Yeah.
and he played squash out there.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what that was like. That had to be an experience coming from this area all the way to Germany and Holland.
Yeah, the competition was really good over there in Europe. A lot of players in Europe play every day, so it was good competition.
How'd you do?
I did pretty good.
You did pretty good?
Out of 64, I came like 18.
That's good. That's good. And Tim, I guess one of the things is to be a 7th grader and to have exposure, particularly in the area of Europe. What does that do for young people?
Yeah, the idea behind City Squash is to expose our students to opportunities and experiences that they haven't been exposed to before. And because squash is played predominantly outside of the Bronx, throughout the Northeast in America, but also around the world, it gives our students a chance to travel and to meet new people. Just before we came here, Billy was talking about how he played in the first round of one of his tournaments, or in one of the early rounds, he played a great player from France. And afterward, Billy chatted with this young player and told him how good he thought he was at the game. And when he came back just a couple of days ago from the trip to Europe, he found on his Facebook page a friend request from this player from France. And so that's just one aspect of the experience that's really positive, that our students are able to meet young people from communities outside of their own and develop relationships with them.
Do you think that squash is a growing sport? Because in the initial we said, it's not the most popular thing that's out there these days, but yet and still it's growing.
Yeah, squash was started at an elite private school in Britain in the 1860s, and when it came to the United States, it was first played at another elite private school in New Hampshire. And throughout its history, it's been limited at educational institutions, elite colleges and private schools, and oftentimes private clubs. But in the last 15 or 20 years, the game has grown a lot in the United States, and lots of programs like City Squash have popped up in places like the Bronx, in South Chicago, in Harlem. We have a great sister program in Harlem. And so there are programs like ours that are not just teaching kids the sport, but attaching the sport to academic support and mentoring, and helping kids get better opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Billy, talk to me about how much you guys practice and what do you learn. Talk to us about that little routine there. What do you do?
I practice almost every day. I try to get better. We also have academics as much as we have squash, so we don't focus too much on one thing. We have a lot of, I play a lot, and I also study hard in academics, which is good.
Talk to us about academics, and you guys have the ability to study and get yourselves prepared academically. What are some of the things that you do academically?
Yesterday our staff teacher was telling us about the UN, about how people are trying to help out with countries that don't have access to clean water, and she's trying to help us out on more stuff that we wouldn't know in school.
So when you have a situation like that going on, and you learn a lot on the academic front. Obviously, Tim, we talk about kids who are learning academically, kids who are learning through sports, but sports is a tremendous mechanism to get them in the area of academics. You want to share a little bit about just sports? Because I know for me, I was a basketball player.
Yeah.
But I knew my grades were able to grow because I had basketball in there. Talk about that sports component.
Yeah, the basic idea of City Squash is to use the excitement that young people have about sports to get them to be more focused on their schoolwork and to put them on a better educational track. And so squash in that sense is a means to an end. And a lot of people say, they ask because squash isn't popular in the Bronx, is it difficult to recruit students to join the program? But the truth is that it's not difficult at all, because there aren't enough athletic opportunities for public school students in the Bronx and in New York City in general. And so when we offer up the opportunity for them to try this new sport out, whether they're in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, or 6th grade, the students generally jump at the opportunity. And then once they're a part of the program, then they have to do all the other work as well. So they've got to do community service, they've got to do several days a week of academic support. And so the two really feed each other and benefit each other. And when it comes time for our students to apply to high schools and apply to college, oftentimes squash gives them a little bit of an extra hook in the process, so that they can maybe get into a better school.
You mentioned community service. Sure. What do they do by way of community service?
Billy, do you want to answer that?
We usually meet up at a certain time in the Bronx, and then we go around. Maybe we spent an hour and a half minutes going around our neighborhood, picking up trash, and just going through every sidewalk, cleaning, trying to help out the community.
We also do the AIDS walk in Central Park every year, and we raise money for cancer research and lots of little projects. We've sent letters to terminally ill children, and lots of different things that focus both on the needs within the Bronx and outside.
So you have this dynamic program because you have squash, you got the academic component, you got the community service component, you got international travel. But I know anybody who has an organization says there's still more we want to do. What are some of the things that you're looking to do down the line in the future?
Our biggest goal is to serve more students, and currently we serve 125 or 130 students in the neighborhood, and we do that through our partnership with Fordham University, where we access its squash courts and classrooms. And our long-term goal would be to build a facility of our own with squash courts and classrooms, so that we can reach out not just to our partner schools, PS 205 and MS 45, but also other schools in the neighborhood.
So you got 2 partner schools, and so they're right here in the area. And so when you talk about those partner schools, what's it like going in there and getting kids to become part of a program? Because you're recruiting against, quote unquote, the other bigger sports. You know, let's say you can play football, you can play basketball. How do you bring them into squash?
Well, the biggest way is that we provide very organized athletic programming, and many of the students at our schools, they don't have at their schools or in their neighborhoods very many organized activities. So if you ask them, what sports do you play, they would say football, baseball, basketball, but are they on any teams of, for those sports? And the answer typically would be no, that they aren't. And so in being in City Squash, you get a racket, you get a uniform, you get a bag, you get to play in sanctioned tournaments, and so pretty quickly the appeal is strong for the students who are interested in trying out.
What do you tell guys when you tell them that you play squash? They say, what do you tell them?
Well, I've been in the program for a long time, so they hear about my trips and stuff, and then they get anxious and they want to try out as soon as they get any chance of trying out. Some people that I meet don't know the sport, but the kids in my grade and above, they're starting to pick up on it.
All right. Well, Tim, let's get the information out before we leave. If somebody wants to be involved in the program, say maybe there's a parent out there that's watching, what do they do?
Currently, we're only serving students from those two schools, so if you're a parent at PS 205 or MS 45, then you should reach out to us by going on our website, citysquash.org. And hopefully one day we'll also be able to serve students from other schools in the area as well.
Beautiful. So we encourage you to find out more if you're in those two schools, 45 or
PS 205.
Right. We want you to make sure that you find out more about City Squash and then see if your child can come a part, because as you can see and hear, very interesting, and it's definitely some exposure involved with it. Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Billy, keep up the good work. We gotta get some video of you and put you up on our sports when we have our sports highlights. We'll make sure our sports guy continues to follow you. And when you go over there, we'll have some videos so that we can say, this is Billy and look at what he's doing. Deal?
Thanks.
All right, that's the deal. All right, well, we encourage you, stay right here with us, because coming up next on Open, we're going to learn the real deal about the foreclosure crisis, I should say, and what measures you need to take in order to protect your home. So we want you to stay with us. We're going to be dealing with foreclosure and you protecting your home when we return right here on Open. Thank you.
Low-fat cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. Chewy and good for you. Snacks high in calcium help build strong bones, and foods rich in fiber are good for your heart, so you have the power to dominate. Can your food do that? Run, throw, think, eat better. Find out more at smallstep.gov.
These things we count on every day started as ideas. Ideas from the minds of African Americans. Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool. Really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately. Because time lost is brain lost.
And Darren Jaime here with you. So glad to have you here with us. Remember, you're watching Open, a live interactive show, so we encourage you, do us a favor. Give us a call, 718-960-7241, or you can send us an email to open@bronxnet.org, and we, of course, open it up right here on the show. Autumn Erling, she's a realtor and a mortgage broker. And like many of the viewers watching and the millions of Americans across the country, been affected by the recent economic recession and foreclosure crisis. Having grown up with a mother in the business and continues the legacy of helping others, she offers a unique perspective on what we can do to protect our assets the next time there's a downturn in her book called The Real Deal. It's going to be published in September. She now joins us over the phone, and we welcome now Autumn to the show. And Autumn, good to have you.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me with you today.
Great. Listen, you know, when we talk about this economic crisis, some people say, look, we're on the upswing from this. We understand that it's been affecting millions and millions of Americans, but to be able to prevent this from happening again, I know that's the backbone of your book.
Yes, it is.
So share with us a little bit about how we can do that.
Well, Darren, I'll tell you, needless to say, we're not on the upswing, and we're not getting back to the better things. My book, The Real Deal, is to provide fundamental principles to live your life in the economy today. We cannot live the life of the minds of the recession of the people in the White House. We have to reclaim our power and get back our joy.
So when you say that, listen, we're not on the upswing, give me a better understanding, because you got some Americans will say, listen, things are getting better, able to get back into their houses, and foreclosure numbers aren't as high as they used to be.
Well, there's two sides of that. On an overall, when we talk about on our nation, so far as our fiscal budget and the economy being at such a deficit as we are today, and actually needing billions of dollars, either taxing the wealthy and also dealing with Medicare and extending the age eligibility and cuts so far as that is concerned, that's definitely on a downswing. Also, so far as reading the Wall Street Journal or any of the Financial Times on a daily basis, it seems though that the headwind that the Federal Reserve overlooked the housing sector and didn't realize it would be such a drop as to having such a major boom. Yes, the foreclosure market, so far as the banks acquiring the properties they are going to need, such as Bank of America, because of the $8.5 billion of losses they have to take out. But needless to say, President Obama the other day came up with a program that, with the forbearance agreement, anyone that's struggling homeowners has a substantial greater chance so they can get employment, that they can skip their payments up to 12 months to give them a chance to get a job. But when you see people that have owned their homes for such a long time, Darren, such as our seniors, and even people that make six figures or not even six figures and make five figures, to lose their home because of unemployment is very sad today.
Well, Autumn, let me jump in here, because we want to talk a little bit about your book, The Real Deal, for people who want to know a little bit more about it. When you talk about the real deal, what are some of the things that you're going to delving into in this book?
Well, the real deal deals with dealing with yourself and change, not expecting other people to make our American dream today. It's not going to happen. I deal with dealing with cope, using principality, emerging your life into diversifying your whole life now into different horizons, providing fundamental principles for each one to claim their joy back, and giving the real deal of what's happening in America today. We can't live in a fantasy. We need to stop the insanity. And the other day, Darren, someone came up to me, and they used the word insanity, and I had to stop. I said, do you know what insanity means? It means doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's exactly what's happening in our world today.
Well, we want to tell you, Autumn Earling's book is called The Real Deal. We've got her here with us sharing a little bit. It's being published in September. And so, are we right? September is going to be the publish date, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
September
so
15th.
Be able to find out a little bit more about The Real Deal. When you look at America and you look at what we're going through right now, obviously we talked about the preventive measures that need to occur in order to be able to deal with that. What are some of the things that people can be doing right now to ensure their future?
Well, to ensure their future, they must realize they have to change. They have to change their lifestyle. They have to reserve on their spending. They have to budget and be realistic. And one thing, too, they don't have to lose their home if they can rent it. But the problem is, Darren, sometimes people think they may want to get $1,500 on their home, but they can get only $800. But if they're able to get a second job, which is not going to affect their home, meaning their family and their children that come first, and mostly their health, then they need to realize that. They have to realize that we have to reclaim our own American dream and not expect the white picket fence with a big house and a dog and a nice car in the driveway.
Well, if people want to find out more about The Real Deal, how are they going to be able to do that?
Well, they can email us because the publishing date is going to be September 15th. They can email us at info@getontrack.biz. And track is spelled TRACK. info@getontrack.biz. BZ.
Okay, info@getontrack.biz. That's where you'll be able to talk to and get more information about Autumn Earling's book, The Real Deal. And she's been keeping it real with us here. Thank you so much, Autumn, for sharing with us.
Thank you, Darren, and I look forward to meeting you and coming on your show. It's been absolutely fabulous. I've heard so many wonderful things about you.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Darren. Have a great day.
All righty. You too. All righty. Well, we encourage you, please don't go anywhere because there will be more open coming up right after this. As we said, if you want to find out more information about Autumn's book, we'll bring it up, the information when we return right back from the break. You'll see it on the lower third. The book is called The Real Deal, and it's to be published in September. Stay with us. We're coming back with more open right after this.
Low-fat cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. Chewy and good for you. Snacked high in calcium help build strong bones, and foods rich in fiber are good for your heart. So you have the power to dominate. Can your food do that? Run, throw, think, eat better. Find out more at smallstep.gov.
These things we count on every day started as ideas. Ideas from the minds of African Americans. Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
And we are back here on Open. We encourage you to give us a call, 718-960-7241. That's the number where you can call and reach us on the show. We also have a Facebook page. We also have a Twitter page. And so what we encourage you to do is go to those places. If you tweet, let us know what you're thinking about the show. Of course, you can also catch up our live updates on our Twitter page, and then also on our Facebook page. When you get to the Facebook page, what we encourage you to do is, of course, like us. And after you like us, we'll continue to get information to you about what's going on Open. And then also gives you an opportunity to share on some of the topics that we've had, some of the guests that we had. And so it's one of our ways that we can try to stay interactive with you, the viewer, and getting a pulse of what you think, as well as letting you know what's coming on from our end here at BronxNet and Open. So we want you to do that. So make sure Facebook and Twitter, that is the thing to do. And you're going to have plenty of time to do it because guess what? The summer is here and we're enjoying it. Speaking of summer, I'm going to tell you about this organization, the Summer Search Organization. They offer year-round mentoring, summer experiences abroad, college advisement to low-income high school students, as well as motivating them to become leaders. They select troubled students who demonstrate reflection, altruism, and performance, a model that they call RAP. And then here now to share with us a little bit about what Summer Search has done for her is student Regina Bonsu. Regina, good to have you here with us.
Thanks.
Thanks. Let's talk a little bit about Summer Search. So you're part of Summer Search, and what exactly is, for somebody who doesn't know, somebody comes and says, well, what is Summer Search? What is it?
Summer Search is like a nonprofit organization that sort of like helps students like myself to go on these trips where you kind of gain leadership and better yourself in a way that is positive and in a way that you're not used to. So the first year, your sophomore year, you go to, for me, I went to Colorado on a mountaineering trip, and I hiked like every day. And every day, and to get to like a certain point. And it was different, it was new, and it was tiring.
Okay, so you're not a hiker before this.
No.
So now you decide, so you're going hiking out every day.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's crazy.
Okay.
It's like, it just challenges you like to do like what you thought you couldn't do. And it's crazy.
So when I hear a little bit about some research and what I've read and know, it's almost like for students, it's an out-of-the-box experience. You're not doing what you're normally comfortable in doing and stuff like that. What was that transition like for you, being the fact that you're coming out of the box?
It was different and difficult because the way we went to this program was like, I went to Colorado and I didn't know anybody there, and you meet people from different places and nobody knows each other, but you kind of get together and live with these people for like 21 days. And you're like, how am I going to pull this off? But then you do it, and then you come out of it feeling like you accomplished something, you know?
Feel a little bit like you're on that reality TV show.
Yeah.
Real world. Okay, so you have this experience. So talk about how you got involved yourself. How'd you find out about some research?
They came to my school once, like my sophomore year, and they talked about like these trips that you go to for free, and everybody was kind of interested, and then they went into like what you do on these trips, and then I was kind of hesitant, but then my teacher was like sort of forcing me to do it, you know, and I listened to her and I did it, and I applied and I went through the interview process, and from there I got accepted. At first I didn't get accepted. I was put on a waiting list, and then I was so mad. And then once I got accepted, I was given a mentor, and so from the mentoring process you start to build up your trip, and then you get on this trip.
So you start off as this person who really doesn't want to do this. Then you get pushed into doing this. You got a little hope about doing this. Then you get pushed to the waiting list. After you get pushed to the waiting list, now you're still frustrated. You go out there. Is it what you expected when you finally got the word?
Everybody's experience is different, and I guess I was expecting like this. I was expecting it to be hard, but I didn't expect it to be that hard while I was there. So.
You talk about 3 words, reflection, altruism, performance. What do those mean to you?
Well, for the reflection part, after you're done with this trip, and even before you reflect on yourself, and then after that you reflect on what you did and how you can apply it to the way you live back home. And it makes you see things in a different way, like at a certain point. And the performance part, it's like, what you do there is going to determine, like, it's going to affect the whole group. And it's going to affect how you move and what you eat and what you do there while you're there, how you live together. And it affects everything you do. So I think that's where the mentoring part comes into play, because the mentoring process helps you to, get into it and prepares you.
You talked about going into that house and not knowing anybody. That pretty much it was, in the house 21 new people pretty much per se. How did you go about integrating yourself, and what was that whole process like?
I don't know. I guess we had instructors. So you live in the woods basically. You set up your tarp and everything, and there's no house, nothing. But then when you live with somebody for a while, you just have to talk to them and you just have to do stuff with them. And so from there, we just lived together as a group. And even though we got frustrated at times, we still had to know how to, balance things off.
Right. So 21 days you had to do it. And so what would you encourage people to, if somebody's watching right now and they say, this sounds like something I want to do, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that if you don't try this, then you're missing out on so much, because this is, even though it might sound crazy and you might be like, no, I don't want to do this, it's still like something that you should try, because New York City is not the only place in the world. And you're going to grow up and you're going to go to college or whatever, and you're going to see different people, different places, and you're going to feel like uncomfortable in certain settings. But this is a program that kind of helps you to get prepared for this kind of stuff. like, and I'm going to India this summer. And I know that I'm going to feel like left out and different, but it's another step towards what I'm going to do in my life. And in college, I'm not going to have, nobody's going to look the same. We're not going to look like the same people. So it's another step.
So you're off to India real soon.
Yeah.
And you're excited about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you got? Any other big plans? What does your future hold? What do you want to do?
I want to, well, I don't know specifically, but I want to major in international studies and political science, and hopefully, like, I can do something that would give back to my community in a way that Summer Search did. So those are my plans so far, but I don't know a specific job that I want, a career.
Well, you're doing great so far, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work. And as you see, you'll find out more information about Summer Search. You see it at the bottom of the screen. We encourage you to be a part of that and find out more information about it. As you can see, it was quite transformative in the life of Regina. It can be quite transformative in your life. So make sure that you find out more about it, and we'll give you that information. We encourage you to stay with us because there is more Open coming up right after this. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Gotta get that. Oh, it must be careful. Well, that's a nice picture.
Come on, Anna.
Okay.
Foreclosure doesn't affect just you. It affects your whole family, too. If you've fallen behind on your mortgage, we can help. Call 1-888-995-HOPE, because nothing is worse than doing nothing.
You're really not that talented.
You're not attractive.
Too fat.
You're too short.
Too old? Why don't you just give up?
Give up. Give up.
Just give up.
Now, Krista, make sure you stay with her the whole time. She's new to the country. This is her first
Mom,
day. This is a brand new country.
Mom,
it's a whole different
it's gonna
culture.
be okay.
Now, make sure you stay with her the whole time. I'll be here right after school to pick you up.
Okay, Mom.
Okay, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ignore my mom. She's so annoying. She's totally freaking out about this whole thing. She freaks out about everything. She always does that. Ugh. Ignore my mom. So, ready for your first day in the Wicked Castle of Doom? I mean, like, seriously, it's so boring. I don't know how they could put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
And welcome back to Open. Darren Jaime here with you, and we are talking about things going on. You know, we are in the midst of summer. There's so many things going on during the summer. Our last guest talked about the fact that she's going to be traveling to India. She's went as far over to Colorado and did some mountaining, and then now you got her, she's going to India in a couple of weeks. There are a lot of things to do throughout the course of the summer, a lot of programs that are out there, and we're pleased to have our guests in studio sharing a little bit more about another program that's out there. It's called the CTE Enrichment Program, and Mark is one of the teachers, and he joins us right now, and Denisha is one of the students. And Mark, good to have you here, and Denisha, good to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So exactly what is the CTE Enrichment Program?
The CTE Enrichment Program is a pilot program that we want to get the 8th graders that are coming into our school to be able to be more comfortable with the settings. So it's like having an advisory class, and also we're going to grant them credits towards the end of the class.
Mm-hmm. So you get what, 2 credits?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 credits at the end of the class. Talk to us about what class is like and what you guys have been doing so far.
We play games to get to know each other more, so that when we come in September, it won't be as difficult, and we'll know half the people here. So yeah, some of the games, we played a game yesterday, I believe, right?
Yes.
Called Minefield,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a 6x6 square, and we have to get to the other side without stepping on any mines or invisible bombs, and you have to memorize the paces or the steps to get to the other side.
Oh, pretty interesting. So you got a lot. So this is in some way a lot of interaction between.
Oh, definitely. It's more interaction, also figuring out strategies, even getting the other teams to misdirect them from what spaces to go to, because the object of the game is to win.
Right. So here you go. You have this object, and you guys are doing minefields, and these are just some of the games that are actually played. Talk to us about the end result, because the end result is you really want to prepare students for that next level.
Oh, definitely. The end level, what we would like to do is we want to make a multi-video of each student, and then let them see how they see themselves, and also to see where they see themselves in the 12th grade. So they're coming into the 9th, you have 9, 10, 11, 12, and we're going to follow a website called Career Zone, which will help them, guide them, and which would be the correct path for them to go into.
So let's find, for somebody who doesn't know where CT is, and can they find out more information, what can they do?
Oh, they can go to the Board of Education website, which will direct them to the High School of Computers and Technology School.
And Denisha, for somebody who's out there and says, listen, what kind of program is this? How would you describe it?
It's pretty fun. You get to meet new people. At first you're going to be shy, of course, but it's better than coming in September with a whole bunch of kids that you don't know.
That's
true.
That's true. All right. Well, congratulations to you, and have best wishes through the summer. Denisha, take care. Mark, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you for having us here.
Have a great summer. Keep up the good work. Nice to meet you. All righty. Well, it's been a pleasure coming into your homes today. And, of course, we want to thank all of our guests for joining us. But most of all, we want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now you can tune in tonight for the recable cast of Open at 10 p.m. on Channel 67 and Verizon's Channel 33. And, of course, you can catch a brand new episode on Friday at 10 a.m. with my girl, Rena Valentine. Until then, as we said, it's been a pleasure coming into your homes. Darren Jaime here with you, saying see you later. Keep your heart, your mind, but most of all, this channel wide open. Take care, everybody. See, I just